to the next installation in Sateran's interviews with U.S. and international scholars in teacher education. 皆さん、こんにちは。私は現在、カリフォルニア大学サンタクルーズ校で教育の博士課程の学生のベンジャミン・ジェームズと申します。よろしくお願いします。私は元教師兼コーディネーターとしてキャリアの多くを日本とアジアの国際学校で過ごしてきました。本日、牛綿博士には日本の教育行政に関する経験の展望、そしてこれからの視点から他の教員、教育者が何を学ぶことができるか、お話を伺いました。貴重なお話ありがとうございます。牛綿博士は教師の教育と行政に関する学者及び研究者としての仕事に加えて、仙台白百合女子大学の人間発達学科の教授であり、東北教育学会、日本教師教育学会会長代理、日本学校教育学会理事。牛綿博士は教育リーダーシップ、管理、教師に関する複数の本の著者であり、カリフォルニア大学バークリー校の元客員研究員です。日本教育学会の元会長。仙台白百合女子大学の元学長、中央教育審議会の教員養成部会の元特別会員、牛綿博士、本日はご参加いただきありがとうございました。
Thank you.
Can you start off and tell me a little bit about you? And how did you begin your career in teacher education?
1972, I entered a national Tohoku University in Japan, hoping to study psychology in education. But at that time, a student movement spread in the universities in Japan as well as in the United States. I changed my major from psychology to educational administration because I became interested in the role of government in education. From the 1950s, we had a strong, centralized and bureaucratic educational policy and administration, national curriculum, and authorization of school textbooks by Central Ministry of Education in Japan under the Cold War. Under these circumstances, how can we get the most important part of education and democracy? I mean, freedom, creativity, and diversity in schools. One of my answers was the empowerment of teachers. Teachers who have fully professional competency, autonomy, creativity, caring, and humanity will resolve this problem, I thought. So I began to study teacher certification, teacher education, and professionalism, both in Japan and the United States. My main research theme was the governance of teacher education. Under these bureaucratic educational administrations, how could we get good teachers, and who should be responsible for preparing good teachers? In 1976, I entered the Graduate School of Education and found an article about the Ryan Act in California, 1970, that required to exclude the bureaucracy in teacher education policy and made a commission of teacher credentialing, which became independent of the State Board of Education. I studied the Ryan Act and I wrote my master thesis about this act. But it was not a good thesis because I couldn't fully collect the materials and articles for my thesis. In only 6 years later, this act was enacted. Then I entered the doctoral program and changed my research theme to the study of the teacher-centered movement in the United States. The purpose of this movement was a professionalization of the teaching profession from 1960s to early 1980s in the United States. This movement had a lot of ideas and activities for teacher education and professional development of teachers. And it then led to the Holmes Group report in 1986. In order to research this movement, I became a visiting scholar at UC Berkeley from 1994 to 1995 and did an interview with the researcher who was involved with this movement and collected the materials and articles for my study. For example, I interviewed Sharon Feynman Nemser at Michigan State University,
Wow.
Don Davies at Boston University, Ann Lieberman at Columbia University. And I got a lot of help from them. I appreciate it. In August 1995, I came back to Japan, finished my doctoral thesis, and published a book about the teacher-centered movement in the United States. After that, I was interested in the professional standards for teachers and leaders, because at that time, the Japanese government introduced the deregulation policy to education, and the Ministry of Education started a non-professional principle, Minkan Jinkocho in Japanese, which permitted the manager of company who has no preparation or no experience of teaching in schools to become school principals. I think we have to make our own professional standard for school leaders in Japan. So in 2009, as a member of the Japanese Association for the Study of Educational Administration, and with another researchers, I made a professional standard for school principal. And then as a president of this association, I tried to spread this standards to local school board of education and professional association of school leaders. But they had little interest in our standards because basically there were no tradition and culture of cooperating with the Academic Research Association for improving the quality of school leader and teacher. Then I was asked to be a member of the Division of Teacher Education, National Central Council for Education, Ministry of Education. And as a member, I made a report that required every prefecture and municipal school board to make the professional standards for school leaders and teachers, and also required to establish a council which will be making and governing standards. But I think there are two problems in the standard policy in Japan. First is that professional standards for teachers made by the government are a kind of compulsion to teachers and universities. How can we get diversity and initiative of teachers and universities under these standards? Second is the governance of professional standards. At first, I imagined and hoped that all stakeholders would be involved to make standards, and it would guarantee professionalism and democracy in teacher policy. But in the established government council, there are limited stakeholders. I mean, no school teachers, no citizens, and in some cases, no private universities, but only national universities. So I wonder, how do they manage this program in the United States? Then I remember the Ryan Act. So I tried to research the governance of teacher standards in California. In February 2020, just before the COVID pandemic began, I visited the CTC and UC Santa Barbara and interviewed with the staff and Dr. Sloan about CTC. And I found CTC has a professional autonomy and democracy in the governance of teacher education. I think in Japan, we need the professional standards for teachers to professionalize teaching profession in Japan. But without professional autonomy and democracy, the standard policy could strengthen the uniformity, bureaucracy, and accountability in education furthermore in Japan.
Thank you. It sounds like you've had a very busy career so far. I really I find it so interesting the connections between Japan and the US that you're talking about. But I wonder, what would you say is unique about education and teacher education in your country, in Japan?
Yeah. The first is the role of a teacher is very wide. It includes not only teaching, but student guidance, career guidance, lunch guidance, extracurricular club activities, swimming coaching in a pool, crisis management in school, collecting the lunch money from students, and guidance for traffic safety of children, and coaching the toilet cleaning by students and so on.
Yeah, I remember doing that a lot when I was a teacher in Japan, helping with coaching the students to clean the bathrooms. Yeah.
Also, the national government and Ministry of Education has a strong power and influence on education in Japan. For example, it has controlled the content of curriculum and checked the textbooks in all schools in Japan since 1950s.
Wow.
Ministry of Education made the national teachers policy and accredited the quality of teacher preparation in the universities and colleges. And the lesson study is also a widely spread practice in Japan.
Yeah, the lesson studies is often talked about even here in the US. I wonder, could you tell us a little bit more about the lesson study and what it looks like in teacher ed?
Yeah. Lesson study has a long history and is popular in Japan now. In lesson studies, teachers will together to improve their own lesson, each other by reflection and on collegiality in their schools. Schools are the professional learning communities, and teachers will develop professionally through these communities.
So there's a lot of watching each other's lessons, giving feedback. Oh, interesting. What would you say are some of the current issues in education in Japan?
Yeah. Under the national policy of neoliberalism, social polarization has widened, and the poverty of children has become a serious problem in education. Also, under the COVID-19 pandemic, this problem exacerbated bullying in schools and children's suicide caused by bullying. And school refusal of children a big problem in Japan too. There are also a growing number of disabled children in schools. And as a result of globalization, the number of foreign residents has increased. Now, 1 out of 40 are foreign residents in Japan. But education for the children of foreign residents is currently not enough, especially for the learning of Japanese language. So I think we need to strengthen social justice in education in Japan.
Mm.
On the issues about teachers, teacher shortage is one of the current problems, and bad working conditions, especially long working times, are another problems of teachers. For young people, teaching profession are now not attractive and no good job. We need to improve salary, autonomy, working conditions. I think these are the similar current issues in the United States and many other European countries.
Yeah, it sounds, I mean, very, very familiar. A lot of the social issues, bullying, social justice and education, very, very similar issues. I wonder, how has teacher education in Japan responded to the demand for English education?
Yeah. Uh, English education used to start from junior high school before, but from 2020, it started from third grade and the fourth grade as a foreign language activity. And from fifth and sixth grade, started as a regular subject. So from 2023, the Ministry of Education will change the rule in order to get secondary English teacher certification easily together with elementary school teacher certification.
Mm.
And in 2017, the ministry made the standards of teacher education we call core curriculum of English. And now teacher preparation of English teachers in the university are based on these standards in Japan.
Oh, interesting. Um, Going back to some of the things we talked about before, what do you see as some of the problems of teacher education in Japan, and where do you see teacher education in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. On the one hand, the professional standards for teachers have been made. On the other hand, the Ministry of Education is going to enlarge the special certification system, which does not need any teacher education to meet the demand of teacher shortage. Both professionalization and non-professionalization of teachers will develop simultaneously. I worry about dropping quality and status of teachers and teacher education.
Yeah.
The renewal system of teacher certification is supposed to be abolished in 2023 because the content of the renewal requirement has nothing to do with teachers' needs and autonomy. So many teachers are not satisfied with the system, and this system has accelerated the teacher shortage. Now, instead of a renewal system, the Minister of Education is going to make a new online professional development system. I think teachers need professional development systems based on their needs and autonomy, just like lesson study.
Right.
And academic or research associations have no voice in the policy making of teacher education by the Ministry of Education. Teacher preparation and teacher education curricula in the university should be based on research and academic knowledge and initiated by academic association, not by political and business initiatives.
That's really interesting. And,
Yeah.
I think the intersection of politics and education
Yeah.
is always a problem in so many places. And it sounds like a very familiar problem both in Japan and the US. What do you think needs to happen to improve teacher education in Japan?
Yeah, the academic background of teachers is low in contrast with another profession. And the teacher's job has become more difficult than ever before. So I think we need to raise the prestige and quality of teachers and teacher education through more graduate school and master degree. Now in Japan, regular certification is issued as a 4 years degree. I think regular certification should be issued after master degree level study in near future. Mm-hmm. In Japan, there are various in-service and professional development systems made by the central and local government. But teachers have little time and initiative under the long working times and our top-down system. So we need to improve working conditions of teachers, make a teacher initiative in service education, and empower teachers in their own professional development.
Sounds great.
Under new liberalism and globalism, we need social justice education in schools and teacher education in Japan, especially under the COVID-19 pandemic. Teachers need to learn more about social justice initiative and liberal education in teacher preparation programs at universities. I don't think deregulation and neoliberalism will improve the quality of teachers and teacher education. As I mentioned before, in Japan, traditionally, government, both national and local, have had a big bureaucratic power in educational policy. In order to improve teacher education in a democratic society, we need to include research association, teacher association, and citizens in the government process. So thinking back to my original motivations when I first became a teacher educator, I guess you could say my dreams still haven't changed much. Yeah. I still believe that we need more freedom for children and teachers, more diversity of schools and teachers, more creativity for children and teachers, more autonomy of teachers and universities, more educated and social justice oriented teachers, and more professionalization of teachers. I still wonder what the role of government should be to assure these teachers.
Yeah, wow, some really important and powerful questions. And maybe it feels a little frustrating that your dreams are
Yeah.
still the same, but you're still fighting for the same goals as before. Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think needs to happen in teacher education more globally?
Mm-hmm. Poverty, bearing, discrimination, gender, immigration are important globally. But many of these issues are very central to Japan now as well. Many are connected to neoliberal movements in teacher education and education in general. So I think we should improve the social justice liberal studies in teacher education. So we need teacher education in universities and colleges, not through alternative routes. Also, teacher shortage and quality of teachers. I mean, the quantity of quality of teachers are both important and occasionally a contradictory programs in teacher education policy globally. I hope the teaching profession will get a higher social status and become a more attractive job by raising their salary, improving working conditions, empowering teachers, and requiring higher academic career. Without these policies, teacher shortage will never be resolved, and young people will never select the teaching profession as their life work.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, thank you so much, Ushiwata Sensei. It sounds like you're working for a very important and very powerful democratic and agentive kind of action for teachers, and I wish you all the best luck in
Thank you.
working towards this.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for joining us today and sharing some of your amazing career and ideas about teacher education in Japan and more globally.
Thank you.
ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。